Seventh Door, Episode 2. The Blood Oath, Scene 1. Desperation. Sunlight streamed through the grimy window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the stale air. Sadim paced the floor, his face drawn and haggard from lack of sleep. For days, he'd been tormented by the knowledge contained in his grandfather's journal. The missing locks on the forbidden door were a constant, ominous reminder of the danger he faced. But today, 3 locks were gone. What did that mean? Would they come today? How could he stop them? He remembered his grandfather's journal mentioning a way to seal the door permanently. It would require a ritual, an exchange, a sacrifice. The entry was faded and cryptic, but the meaning was clear. If he wanted to stop whatever lurked behind that door, he needed to make a deal. A deal with the devil. Scene 2. Unearthing the past. Outside, the wind whipped around him, carrying the scent of rain and decaying leaves. Sadim hurried through the village, avoiding the wary eyes of the villagers. Their whispers followed him like a shroud. He reached an old woman tending a small vegetable patch outside a dilapidated house. Rumor had it she knew all the village secrets. Maybe she could help him. She listened to his story, her gaze sharp and knowing. "Your grandfather made a terrible mistake," she rasped finally, "but you have a chance to undo it. However, you will need something powerful to counter the ancient evil he unleashed. Something made of moonlight." Her words echoed in his ears as he returned to the house, his mind racing. Moonlight. What did that mean? How could he possibly find something made of moonlight? As he searched the house, his eyes fell on an ornately carved silver mirror propped against a wall. Could that be it? The old woman had spoken of something made of moonlight, and mirrors reflect light. But why would his grandfather have put such a powerful artifact here? Was it to counter whatever evil he had unleashed? He placed the mirror on the floor in front of the door, its surface gleaming faintly in the dim light. He began chanting the words from his grandfather's journal, feeling a surge of power from the mirror's reflection, hoping it would be enough. Scene 3. The summoning. Suddenly, the room grew freezing cold. The candles flickered wildly, casting grotesque shadows that danced on the walls. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end as a guttural voice boomed from behind the door. "So the ritual begins," he continued chanting, bracing himself for whatever might emerge. The blood oath. The door trembled violently, its rotten wood straining against the onslaught from within. A putrid stench filled the room as cracks spiderwebbed across the door. The locks, sensing the weakening barrier, clanged frantically as if trying to escape. With a deafening crash, the door burst open, revealing a swirling vortex of darkness. Tendrils of shadow reached out, coiling around his legs and tugging him towards the abyss. "Help me," he cried out, struggling against the unseen force. The mirror shattered, its moonlight shards scattering and dissolving into motes of dust. His grandfather's journal flew from his grasp, its pages fluttering like a wounded bird before vanishing into the gaping maw of the doorway. The creatures slithered forward, their eyes burning with unholy fire. Fear threatened to consume him, but a primal instinct to survive spurred him on. He stumbled backward, tripping over the scattered locks, sending 4 more crashing to the ground. 5 down, 2 to go. The creature hissed, its voice dripping with malicious glee. The relentless pull of the shadows intensified. The remaining locks rattled ominously, hanging by a thread. The creatures advanced, their grotesque forms coalescing from the darkness. Their eyes gleamed with anticipation. "Almost done, little lamb. Soon we will feast." Terror lent him strength. He scrambled back, desperation lending speed to his movements. He flung himself aside as a massive paw swiped where he stood a moment before. "One more," he gasped, eyeing the final 2 locks. each representing a barrier between him and oblivion. One final push, one final prayer. He slammed the last lock into place, collapsing against the door as the shadowy figures writhed in frustration behind it. The vortex pulsed ominously, tendrils thrashing against the barrier. Their guttural roars reverberated through the house, shaking its very foundations. But he held his ground, his body aching, his breaths coming in ragged gasps. Would it hold? Would they wait? Or would they find another way in? Scene 4. Hope. As the cacophony continued, hope flickered within him. Perhaps by breaking the door seals, he had severed their connection. But the silence that followed was more terrifying than their rage. The vortex dissipated, leaving behind an unnerving stillness. Slowly, he rose, his limbs heavy with fatigue. The door, now devoid of locks, hung precariously from its hinges, a silent testament to the battle he had just endured. He cautiously approached it, his hand hovering over the worn surface. As he pushed it open, the stench of decay and brimstone assaulted his nostrils. Within, an inky blackness yawned, seemingly bottomless. A single, aged book lay on the threshold. Drawn to it, he picked it up. Its pages, filled with arcane symbols and incantations, whispered of forbidden lore. This was the source of his grandfather's pact, the key to understanding the horrors he had unleashed. As he delved deeper into the book, the truth of the seventh door unraveled before him. It was not merely a gateway, but a nexus of unspeakable entities, beings that thrived on fear and despair. His grandfather, in his hubris or desperation, had sought their power, opening the door to unimaginable consequences. The door shuddered, as if disturbed by his intrusion. The book in his hands pulsed with a sinister energy. "They are returning," a voice rasped from behind him, the voice of his grandfather, twisted and malevolent. He spun around, but there was no one there. The door, however, had begun to glow with an eerie light, tendrils of darkness reaching out as if to drag him back into its abyss. His heart pounded in his chest, echoing the rhythmic creaks of the door. Panic surged through him. He had to escape, to find a way to seal the door permanently. But how? The book offered a clue, a chant to banish the entities back to their realm. It was risky, requiring a complete sacrifice of his own essence to sever the connection. Was it worth it? Could he bear the cost? The door pulsed, its malevolent presence growing stronger with each passing moment. He had little time left. His breath hitched as he began the chant, pouring every ounce of his being into the words. The door flared, its malevolence intensifying. But as he reached the final syllables, the room plunged into darkness. Silence descended, heavy and absolute. The darkness was absolute, pressing against him like a physical force. Then, a sliver of moonlight pierced the gloom, followed by another and another until the room was flooded with ethereal light. The oppressive darkness retreated, revealing the door. It was sealed, no longer emanating an evil aura, but simply a weathered piece of wood. He collapsed, drained but exhilarated. The worst was over. But as dawn broke, He knew his journey was far from over. He had banished the creatures back to their realm, but the door remained, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond his perception. Now, he needed to find a way to destroy it, to sever his family's ties to the House of Doors forever. As the villagers stirred from their slumber, he resolved to seek their help, to unravel the door's origins and find a way to obliterate it. But would they assist him, or were they hiding something themselves? To be continued. The darkness in this house is alive, and you can feel it watching you as you make your way through the halls, waiting for you to make a move, waiting for you to break the rules. Because if you do, it will strike when you least expect it. Hi, welcome to The Seventh Door, a horror series that follows a young man named Sadim, who finds himself in a house full of secrets after inheriting it from his recently deceased grandfather. After uncovering a hidden passage behind a bookcase in the main hall, he discovers a door concealed from sight, and with it, 7 locked brass doorknobs, and each one inscribed with a strange circular symbol. His grandfather kept a journal which documented the house's secrets, its history, and the rituals needed to keep the evil contained. With each passing day, one of the locks mysteriously disappears, leaving Sadim to wonder how long it will be until all 7 are gone and whatever is trapped inside is set free. Can you feel the suspense building? Well, if you can, then show your support, if you dare. Welcome back to another episode of The Seventh Door. Last time we saw Sadim decide to take matters into his own hands by destroying the second seal, breaking the second lock on the door in order to stop whatever force was opening the doors from doing so on its own. However, he soon found out that whatever he had unleashed was far more powerful than he had imagined, as he barely escaped with his life. Now shaken to his core, he returns home where he hasn't exactly been welcomed with open arms. His sister is less than thrilled to see him return, questioning his sanity. But the truth is, Sadim is no closer to figuring out what is going on or how to fix it. So let's continue the story now and find out what happens next in The Whispering Flame. Episode 2 of The Seventh Door. Scene 1. The second lock. Sadim hadn't slept in 2 nights. The sound of metal hitting wood had become a terrifying lullaby. Clack, the old house groaned under the weight of the storm outside, mimicking the turmoil in his stomach. When he finally dared to approach the 7th door again, 2 of the 7 brass locks were missing. Gone, just like the first. No sign of breakage, no evidence of tampering, just gone. The house was silent as he stared at the door, the strange circular sigil glowing faintly in the candlelight. He remembered the line from his grandfather's journal. They come when the 7th lock breaks. Sadim didn't know who they were, but deep inside, he knew he didn't want to meet them. With his nerve of steel and a crowbar in hand, he tested the door to find it unlocked, but he didn't go through. What if his grandfather was right and whatever he unleashed was dangerous? Was it worth the risk to find out? Inside, he found an ornately carved mirror resting against the wall. It depicted 2 figures embracing, but their faces were obscured by the dim light filtering in from the side. What did it mean? How was it connected to everything else? Suddenly, the air grew frigid. He spun around, the polished silver in front of him now showing 2 figures. Not the same figures from the carving, but 2 new ones. Himself and his grandfather. They stood close, too close for comfort. Their smiles were wide, unsettlingly so, and their eyes glowed an unnatural red. Before he could react, they vanished. Heart hammering against his ribs, he fled back down the hall. Had he imagined it? Or was he being watched? That evening, a cold draft filled the house. It was the middle of June, and yet it felt like winter had crept in through the cracks. Desperate for warmth and maybe distraction, Sadim decided to light the old fireplace in the main hall. He found dry wood in the cellar, placed it in the hearth, and struck a match. As the flames took hold, he noticed something strange. The fire didn't flicker. It stood perfectly still, motionless, silent, unnatural. Then he heard it. A whisper, faint, from within the fire. Sadim, Sadim. He stepped back, heart pounding. Was it the wind? A trick of the mind? But as he stared into the unmoving flame, he saw something impossible. Eyes, two glowing red orbs, staring back at him from deep inside the fire. And then the whisper again, clearer this time. You've opened the first. The flame remembers. Scene 3. The old letter panicked. Sadim ran to the study. He rummaged through the drawers, through stacks of forgotten books, until he found something tucked inside an old envelope. A yellowed letter written in Arabic, in an elegant but shaky script. It was from his grandfather. To my grandson Sadim, if you are reading this, then I have failed to contain it. The first door opened the moment I summoned her, the whispering flame. She showed me visions, made promises. I thought I could control it. I was wrong. The house is not cursed. It is a vessel, a prison. The doors are seals. Each time one opens, a part of their world leaks into ours. You must not speak to her again. She feeds on attention, on curiosity. She is the beginning of the end. Do not let the second door open. Burn this letter when you're done. Sadim stared at the fireplace. The flame was gone now, just cold, black ash. He had a choice to make. Should he close the door, hide away from whatever was coming for him? Or should he stay put and try to fight back? What would his grandfather have done? He had to know that whatever he was dealing with was powerful, that it had already claimed a part of his family, twisting his grandfather into doing things he wouldn't normally do. But if he sealed the doorway, would it just grow stronger? Whatever, he decided. He knew he couldn't do it alone. He needed help. Maybe his sister could believe him now. Maybe, together, they could stand a chance. Maybe. But when he went to tell her what he had discovered, what he had uncovered in the basement, she didn't believe him. Stop it, Sadim, she told him, shaking her head. It's getting late. Come back to bed. She didn't know what he was talking about. She said she thought he had been sleep deprived and was just making things up. But Sadim knew the truth. He could see the doubt in her eyes, the fear that she wouldn't admit to herself. And so he decided to tell her anyway. He told her about the door, about the locks, about the whispers that seemed to echo around them even now. He told her about the visions he had seen in the mirror, the ones that chilled him to the bone. When he was done, the silence was heavy between them. Finally, his sister spoke. I won't stop you from investigating, she said, but you'll be doing this at your own risk. I don't believe you, but I also don't want to. Scene 4. The stranger at the window that night. Sadim heard tapping at the window. He crept downstairs slowly, holding a rusted metal poker in his hand. Outside stood a figure, a woman, dressed in white, barefoot, her hair long and tangled like seaweed. Her face was obscured in shadow, but she wasn't looking in. She was looking directly at the 7th door through the window. Then her lips moved. Sadim couldn't hear the words, but he read them clearly. Let me in. Let me in. Let me in. He turned away. When he looked back, she was gone. He continued upstairs, not wanting to wake his sister, but unable to sleep anyway. The image of the woman burned into his mind. Who was she? And why did she want in? He wondered if his sister had seen her too, or if she too had chosen to ignore it. In the morning, he asked her, hoping for an answer. But she looked confused. A woman at the window, he pressed. You didn't see her, did you? I must have been dreaming, she replied softly, because I didn't see anything. Was she lying to protect him? Or had she truly not seen anything at all? As days turned into weeks, the sightings continued. Sometimes she would be standing in the garden. Sometimes she would be sitting on the porch. But when Sadim went to investigate, she was always gone. He began to think that he was losing his mind, that the stress of the situation was getting to him. But then the next time he went to check, he found a small white flower at the windowsill. And every time after that, there was a new flower, growing larger, blooming brighter, until one day there were enough to form a path leading all the way to the door. Scene 5. The candle ritual. He flipped to the next page in the journal. To silence the whispering flame, you must complete the candle ritual. 7 black candles. Salt. The circle must be unbroken. Say the name backwards. Uninterrupted. Do not blink. Do not speak. Do not run. He didn't have 7 black candles. But in the attic, among old boxers and rotting cloth, he found them tall, unlit, and strangely warm to the touch. That night, he sat in the center of a salt ring, candles lit around him, chanting the name backward. Uninterrupted. The room grew colder, then suddenly, the candles went out. All 7. At once. And a voice whispered behind him. You said my name. He turned. No one there. But the 7th door was different now. There were only 4 locks left. Will Sadim be able to contain whatever he has unleashed, or will it consume him entirely? Join us next time to find out what happens in the next episode of The 7th Door. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to support us. And while you wait for the next one, why not check out some of our other videos, which are just as scary. Until next time, remember, some doors are best left unopened. Hello my friends, it's me. Welcome back to the channel. And welcome to The 7th Door, Episode 3, The Man Beneath the Stairs. If this is your first visit, be sure to check out Episode 1 and 2 before watching this one. You can find links to both episodes on this page. Also, please consider subscribing so you never miss an episode. Let's get into it. Scene 1. The ticking. It had been 3 days since the second lock vanished. Sadim was no longer sleeping. The ticking had started, not from a clock, but from within the walls, sharp, mechanical, like a dying watch, trying to keep time in a place where time no longer moved. Tick came every night at 3:07 a.m. Then silence. Then whispers in a voice that sounded like his own. You left him down there, Sadim. He checked the 7th door again. 3 locks remained. He hadn't touched them, but the house had. Scene 2. The basement. The ticking sound led him to the wooden door beneath the main staircase. It had been locked since the day he arrived. Now it stood ajar. A foul, earthy scent hit him as he pulled it open, a mix of rotting soil and something metallic, like blood and rust. He descended slowly. The steps creaked under his weight. The basement was colder than it should have been. There were no windows, no vents. Yet a chill moved through it like breath. He turned on his flashlight. The walls were carved stone, damp and black with age. But on the far side, he saw it. A trapdoor, half buried under loose bricks and dust. On it, a sigil, just like the one on the 7th door, only smaller. And beneath the sigil, scratch marks. Human fingernail marks. Scene 3. The Man Who Crawls. That night, the scratching began. Under the floor, beneath his bedroom. It started as light tapping, then turned into long, deliberate strokes, like nails dragging across wood. He put his ear to the floorboards and heard breathing. Labored, raspy, wheezing like someone struggling to stay alive. Then, a whisper. It's dark down here. You left me in the dark. I see you when you sleep. Sadim bolted from the room and slept in the kitchen. The sound followed him. Everywhere. Scene 4. The photograph. The next morning, while searching the study, Sadim found an old photograph inside a leather-bound book. It was a black and white photo of a boy maybe 12 or 13 years old standing in front of the same trapdoor in the basement. But behind the boy, barely visible in the shadow, was a figure crouched on all fours, unnatural limbs too long, head tilted sideways like it was broken. He turned the photo over. In his grandfather's handwriting, "We locked him down there. But he doesn't sleep. He crawls. He watches." Scene 5. The third lock breaks. The wind howled that night. Windows rattled. The house groaned under invisible pressure. At exactly 3:07 a.m., Sadim awoke to the sound of footsteps, barefoot, wet, slapping gently against the wood. He opened his door. Nothing. He crept toward the 7th door and stopped. Another lock was gone. Only 2 remained. And now something had changed in the air like a static charge. He could feel it under his skin. The hallway light flickered. A low growl vibrated through the floor. Then something crawled out of the darkness beneath the stairs. It was him, the man from the basement, but not fully a man. His face was stretched, skin pale and tight, lips torn back in a permanent scream. Bones jutted out unnaturally, his fingers scraping the floor as he dragged his body like an insect. He looked up at Sadim with black, unblinking eyes and whispered, "You opened the 3rd. I remember your blood." Scene 6. The bloody dream. Sadim woke in bed, soaked in sweat, shaking. Had it been a dream? He rushed to the 7th door. The 3rd lock was still missing. Not a dream. Then he noticed it. Red smears along the hallway floor, leading from under the stairs to the trap door in the basement. He followed the trail. The trap door was wide open. Inside it, darkness. A pit so deep his flashlight couldn't find the bottom. Something moved below. He didn't wait to find out what. Scene 7. The tape recorder. Back in the study, he found an old tape recorder. Inside was a labeled cassette. "Do not listen alone, -1981. He played it anyway. His grandfather's voice. It crawled out of the first circle. The blood wasn't enough. I thought sealing the trapdoor would end it, but it found the boy. It fed on him. And now he is it. The man beneath the stairs is no longer human. If he speaks your name, don't answer. If he asks to come in, don't say yes. He is the 3rd. Then static. Then a deep, raspy voice. "Saddam, you've heard me now." The tape melted in the player. So we'll pick back up with the story in episode 4. Make sure to subscribe if you do, I don't want to miss it. But for now, let's talk about the secrets hiding beneath this house. What do you think is down that trapdoor? How did it turn the boy into the thing that he is? Let me know in the comments. And if you liked this episode, please leave a like. It helps bring these stories to more people. And if you really like the series, then consider supporting us on a crowdfunding platform. With your support, we can continue to explore new, terrifying tales and bring even more scary stories right here on our channel. Thank you for watching. Come back soon, because I know you dare. Today's horror story is going to be a real doozy, because we're going to be reading from a book called The 7th Door. This is a short story by an author who writes a lot of paranormal horror stuff. And let me tell you, this man knows how to write. And if you like what you hear today, I do recommend checking out the rest of his books. This story is about a guy named Sid. He lives in a remote home that belonged to his family for many generations. But the home has secrets buried within its walls. Secrets from the days when genies walked among mankind. And so, after hearing rumors of his family's dark past, Saddam returns home to investigate. What he finds will haunt him forever. Now, This story is going to be split up into scenes, so you'll know what part of the story we're reading when I say the word scene. We'll also be adding some spooky sound effects to really set the mood. So get yourself comfortable and ready for a wild ride. Scene 1. Something is missing. There were only 2 locks left on the 7th door, and Salem could feel that the barrier between his world and something unspeakable was thinning. The house had begun to behave like it was alive. Doors creaking open without wind, objects rearranged in plain sight, and the overwhelming feeling of being watched. Then, on a morning smeared with fog, he realized something terrifying. His reflection was missing. In the bathroom mirror, he saw the room behind him, the cracked tiles, the broken sink, but not himself. He waved. Nothing. He touched the glass. It was warm. Then came the whisper. I'm not in the mirror anymore. Scene 2. The Hall of Mirrors. That night, the ticking returned. Then the laughter, childlike, echoing, but wrong. Salem followed the sound down the main corridor. The walls flickered with light that didn't have a source. At the end of the hallway, behind a concealed wooden panel, he discovered a narrow, dust-filled passage that led to a forgotten part of the house, a wing hidden for decades. Inside was a long room, lined from floor to ceiling with mirrors. Each one was different, baroque, cracked, clean, shattered, but all of them reflected something else. In one, the hallway was on fire. In another, he was screaming silently. In a third, the man beneath the stairs stood directly behind him. He turned. Nothing there. He backed out slowly. But his reflection in the largest mirror did not. It grinned and stayed. Scene 3. The woman in the mirror. He began seeing her everywhere. A woman in a black veil. Her face blurred. Always watching from the mirror. Motionless. Waiting. She never moved while he looked at her. But once, he turned away for a second. When he looked back, she was closer. He covered the mirrors with sheets. She burned holes through them. He smashed one. The shards bled. He tried to flee the house. The door was gone. The house had swallowed the exit. Scene 4. The 4th lock. At 3:07 a.m., the temperature dropped sharply. Ice formed along the edges of the walls. Breath turned visible. The 4th lock fell from the 7th door. No one touched it. It just unraveled, as if time had reversed itself for a moment. Now, only one lock remained. From behind the door, he heard it breathing. Not fast, not labored, just steady, patient, as if whatever waited beyond had always known he would come. Scene 5. The mirror ritual. He returned to the Hall of Mirrors. They're carved into the wall behind a massive cracked mirror. He found an inscription in Arabic. Through 7 reflections, the gate opens. Through blood, the watcher wakes. He was part of it now. The house had chosen him. The rituals had begun before his birth. His grandfather had warned him, but not soon enough. That night, he dreamed of his childhood. He remembered playing in a room that didn't exist, with a mirror, and a boy that looked exactly like him but wasn't. He remembered the boy whispering, "Only one of us can leave the mirror." He woke up screaming. A mirror had been placed next to his bed while he slept. His reflection was gone again. Scene 6. The face that wasn't his. It was midday, bright, loud, and hot. But when Salem looked into the bathroom mirror, he finally saw a reflection. It wasn't his. It was his face, but not his eyes. They were sunken, hungry, and smiling in a way no living man could. Then the mirror shattered. From within the shards, the voice spoke. "You are the final lock. When you break, I rise, to be continued." So this is where we're gonna end part 1 of this terrifying tale. But don't worry, part 2 is already in the works. So keep an eye out for that if you haven't already. And if you want more creepy stories, you know what to do. And as always, remember, John shot first. The clock ticks. Something's coming. Can you feel it? Well, if you can't, you might be dead already. So you should probably watch this before that happens. Or, if you just want to join us for another installment of scary stories told in the dark, then by all means, make yourself comfortable. Just don't touch anything. Episode 5, The Room That Wasn't There. Our story begins with a young man named. He's your typical brooding, handsome, mysterious type. If you've seen any number of thrillers or dramas, you've probably met at least 3 people like him. The ones who always wear black, stare intensely and say really stupid things like, "Do you want call me a hero?" right before they do something undeniably heroic. Anyway, Sethi lives in a house. Not an exciting one either, which is why we're going to refer to it simply as the house for the duration of this story. We hope you understand. But if you're in the market for a new house and you'd like this one to come with a feature-length horror film, then we hate to break it to you, but it's probably best to look elsewhere. So Saeed finds something disgusting in his bedroom. It's on the floor. It looks like a splatter of dried blood. He doesn't think much of it at first, assuming it must be from his last episode, whatever that means. But something about the stain just isn't right. So he touches it and the blood is warm. Creepy. The stain also seems to be spreading in slow, pulsing ripples, like water spreading across a pane of glass. After you accidentally tip over your glass of water while texting under the table, and you panic and try to discreetly wipe it up with a napkin, but it's too late, everyone saw. Anyway, as the blood ripples move outward, a shape starts to emerge, which allows Saeed to see what the splatter actually is. It's a map. This map is of a much bigger house, like the kind of house you would expect to see in a fairy tale, only significantly darker because fairy tales are usually full of sunshine and rainbows and not blood. And this blood has been meticulously crafted by our special effects team to appear as realistic as possible. They worked very hard on it, so please take a moment to appreciate their efforts. Thank you. But anyway, following the map, Saeed sees a room that isn't in his house. A big room, a root cellar perhaps, which according to the map's annotations is 16 feet deep, twice the depth of his actual house's foundation. And in the middle of the cellar, there's a smaller room, which according to the map's annotations is the place he needs to go. According to the annotations, the key to entering this place will be found where the blood touches the wall, which is to say, right here. But when he goes to look, there's nothing to be found. Frustrated, he spends hours searching the room, tearing it apart, finding nothing. But that's okay, because the house has something else planned for him. At 3:07 a.m., for no reason whatsoever, the closet door swings open. Saeed is startled, but intrigued enough to follow whatever it is that the universe is trying to tell him. Behind the door, there's a staircase. It curves downward. It looks like it goes down for miles. It also sounds like it's breathing, but we'll get back to that. The stairs led down past the basement and far, far below the foundation of the house, which apparently has a mind of its own. And eventually they end at a doorless archway. A big, black, swirling mass of mist obscures the opening. Saeed knows he's at the place indicated on the map, the Forgotten Room, because that's what it says right above the arch. He takes a deep breath, steps forward, and as soon as he does, he hears a click. He turns back to see the 5th lock fall from the 7th door. Before he had 6 locks to count, but now there's only 5. This is something he's going to have to keep track of. Then he hears a scream. Startled, he turns around, but nothing is there. Oh, except for the fact that the scream was his. That's weird. He hasn't made a sound. Suddenly, the room goes silent. The only sound is the distant dripping of water. He steps cautiously into the forgotten room and gets his bearings. It's circular. There aren't any windows. There isn't even a door. But there is a pedestal in the center holding a jar filled with teeth. Teeth like yours, maybe, unless you haven't got any teeth. In which case, well, hopefully you still have a jaw, I guess. Anyway, the walls are covered in drawings of a man split in two. On one side, there's the man's normal face. On the other side, there's the man's decayed corpse. Between them is a screaming mouth, as if the man is torn between his humanity and the putrid blackness that threatens to consume him. And then on the floor, etched in blood, these words: I left to survive. I remained to rot. Then the jar on the pedestal begins to shake violently. It's as if something inside wants out. As the shaking intensifies, the air grows heavy, colder, and the room begins to darken. As the light fades, the shadows deepen, twisting into monstrous shapes that scuttle along the walls. Soon, the room is completely dark. All that can be heard is the violent shaking of the jar and a low guttural growl. Then suddenly, the room is flooded with light. As the brightness overwhelms, a single word screams from the jar. Help, it says. The figure in the painting seems to reach out to Saeed, begging for his assistance. But as quickly as it appeared, the light is gone. The room is plunged back into darkness and the growling resumes. But now it's coming from within the walls. The sound of claws scrabbling against wood and stone echoes around him. Terror grips Saeed and he turns to flee. He runs from the room, racing back up the breath stairs. He bursts from the closet door and flees down the hall. He has no idea where he's going, but he doesn't care. He just wants to escape the house. But something is wrong. The house is different. The room he just fled from is somewhere else. The stairs are gone. And when he pushes open the door, instead of the hall, he sees a blank wall. He runs, stumbling, tripping, falling, scrambling to his feet and running again. But every room he enters is a lie. Every room leads him back to the start. Every window is a portal into endless darkness. And every mirror shows him something terrible. His life playing out before him, except it's not his life. It's the life of another person. But that person is in the room with him. The other self is eating his dinner, drinking his wine, laughing with his friends. But when he approaches the mirror, he sees a terrifying smile. A smile that isn't his. The smile of someone who knows his deepest secrets. The smile of someone who knows how scared he is. He wakes up gasping for breath, but there's no air to breathe. His lungs burn. His heart pounds in his chest. He rips his shirt open, desperate to fill his aching lungs, but he can't. He falls to his knees, paralyzed by terror, and then she appears. The veiled woman stands before him, smiling. She speaks in a voice that drips with honey and ice. Still afraid? She asks, her words sending shivers down his spine. There's no need, my love. I'm here to help. With that, she extends a gloved hand towards him, her fingers brushing his cheek. He recoils as a searing cold burns his skin. You forget, she whispers, leaning close. I am you, and you are me. The next morning, his arms itch. He rolls up his sleeves, revealing thin black threads beneath his skin. They squirm. He screams and claws at them, but they only seem to grow longer, coiling around his veins like a nest of vipers. They spread faster the more he fights. Panicked, he stumbles to the mirror and his reflection smiles back, winking. And then he hears the voice behind him. You're almost ready. He whirls around, but there's no one there. Only the clock ticking away the seconds until the locks fall from the 7th door. Now, to be clear, If you find yourself in this situation, there's really only one thing to do. Rip off all your clothes, smear them on the walls, and wait for the police to arrive. Now, thanks to the magic of cinematic storytelling, we won't have to watch Sadim do that. But please, dear audience, if you find yourself trapped in a liminal space with a mysterious veiled woman, this is your best course of action. As the final lock falls, a crack spreads across the mirror behind him, widening until it forms a gaping hole. The veiled woman beckons with a smile, stepping through the mirror. "Come," she says. "It's time to go home." And with that, she disappears into the darkness, leaving Saeed alone in the dusty old house with nothing but the sound of his own breathing and the tick-tock of the ever-present clock, waiting for whatever comes next. But whatever that is, we won't be here to see it. We've run out of time. But hey, if you stick around until the very end, maybe, just maybe, we'll share one last horrifying glimpse into the depths of Saeed's despair. And if you're willing to risk it all for a little more horror, then click here to continue the nightmare. Or if you want to tell us what you thought of this story, then click here. This is a horror anthology series presented by a sponsor. New episodes premiere every Thursday. You can find us on social media and our website. And thanks for watching. Episode 6, The Last Lock. Scene 1. The City of Echoes. Sadean fell. For minutes, for hours, or maybe for years. He landed on Blackstone, surrounded by towering buildings made of mirrors, each reflecting a different version of his life. One where he never entered the house, one where he died in the womb, one where he was not human at all. A wind howled, but it carried no air, only voices, his own, distorted, chanting one word: open. He walked through the mirrored city, drawn toward a tower made entirely of glass teeth. At its peak, the 7th door. Scene 2. The 6th lock. As he climbed the stairs inside the tower, people he once knew, some he never met, they whispered, "Only the unwell may pass." At the top, the 6th lock dangled, broken, and standing in front of the door, his mother, but her eyes were sewn shut. She handed him a knife. "What was taken in blood must be returned in silence," she said. He turned to speak. She vanished. The 6th lock clicked open. Scene 3. The Chamber of Names. Beyond the door was a circular room with walls covered in names. Thousands of them, written in blood. He searched for his own, found it, crossed out. Next to it, a name in glowing black ink: Sadim ibn Ahad, son of no one. As he touched it, memories not his own flooded him. Born in a cave of fire, fed milk of shadow, taught to walk by a creature with no face, he collapsed. When he awoke, the room was gone, and he was back in his childhood bedroom. Scene 4. The Man in the Walls. The wallpaper rippled. A hand emerged. "Older, Ratan. You wanted the truth," it said. "The truth is, you're already inside. You never left." The walls peeled away. Behind them, a spiral staircase of bones. He descended again. Each step whispered a secret. You killed her. You brought them. You begged for power. He denied it all. But deep inside, a flicker of doubt. What if... It was true. Scene 5. The final memory. At the bottom of the spiral was a room filled with candles. In the center, a cradle. Inside it, a baby made of ash. When he touched it, the final lock shattered. Memories returned in a flood. A ritual at age 7. The summoning, the deal, the door. He was the key. He was the 7th lock. He had locked himself away to protect the world. Now, He had undone it all. Scene 6. The 7th door opens. The door opened, not with sound, but with absence. Everything beyond it was void. No light, no time, no end. And from it stepped the veiled woman, now fully unveiled. Her face was his, but cleaner, serene, complete. You brought me through. I am the you that was promised, the one born whole. He screamed, but it was joy. He stepped into the void and was erased. Thank you for watching this episode of The Locks. If you enjoyed this story, please contact our team and let us know. We love reading your feedback. This episode was written by Alex Fobbs and edited by Jack Cap. Our cast this week included Shazad Latif, Natalie No, Cassandra Kaw, and Simon B. Vance. And a huge thank you to our supporters who get bonus content and their names at the end of every episode. This week's supporters include: if you want to see your name at the end of an episode, go to our support page. It also helps us produce these videos for free. Until next time, don't forget to lock your doors at night.
This is one of our scariest stories yet. So turn off the lights, lock your doors, and hide under your blankets if you dare. This is never answer if someone calls your name. The wind was howling outside, rain lashing against the windows, thunder booming overhead. The perfect setting for a scary story. And I was determined to find one for my viewers. It's Halloween night. A horror-themed short story channel should be fully booked with ghost stories. Yet here I was, slumping in my chair, laptop open, empty document taunting me. Writer's block. For some reason, nothing spooky came to mind. Just as I was about to call it quits for the night, I heard a knock at the door. I jumped, knocking over my water glass. What? Who could be out in this weather? My neighbor? Mrs. Higgins, perhaps. She did love her trick-or-treating, even at 87. I opened the door, and there she was, soaked to the bone, holding a carved pumpkin. "Happy Halloween, dear," she croaked. "I just wanted to drop this off. You look like you could use a good scare. I found this in my attic. Thought it might inspire you." And with that, she handed me the pumpkin and disappeared into the storm. I shut the door, feeling more confused than scared. What was she talking about? Inspiration? Then I noticed something strange. Carved into the pumpkin, right into its grinning face, were the words, "Don't answer if someone calls your name." Huh, was this some kind of prank? But who would do something like this, and why? Mrs. Higgins was harmless as they came. Besides, the last time I checked, she wasn't exactly the carving type. I shrugged it off as an overly enthusiastic Halloween decoration and went back to my laptop. Maybe Mrs. Higgins was right. Maybe this would help me get in the spooky spirit. I began typing. My fingers flew across the keyboard, guided by some sudden burst of inspiration. I wrote about a young woman haunted by the ghost of a stranger who called out to her in the middle of the night. As I wrote, I realized the story felt oddly familiar, as if I had once heard it before. I shook off the feeling. After all, ghost stories are pretty much the same. Hauntings, scary encounters, things that go bump in the night. They all follow a similar formula. Still, I couldn't help but wonder where my sudden burst of inspiration had come from. Had I subconsciously lifted the plot from some obscure horror anthology? I dismissed the thought. I was a one-person team, my own writer and editor. So what if the story seemed strangely familiar? I finished writing, then stopped. I reread my work. There was something missing, a way to make it more terrifying, more realistic. Suddenly, I knew just what to add. The woman in the story shouldn't have been haunted by just any ghost, but by the ghost of someone close to her, someone she loved. Yeah, that would hit the reader right in the feels. So I added the final touch to my story, saving it onto my desktop. And now for the moment of truth. I read it out loud to see how it sounded. "My dearest Amelia," I began, getting into character. "You won't believe this, but last night I heard my mother's voice calling me from another room." I paused, letting the suspense build.
Our minds wide, my ab,
I leaned forward, dropping my voice to a whisper. Maybe I was just exhausted. Maybe I imagined it. Then I heard it again, clearer, closer. My name echoed through the silent house, each word a nail hammered into my coffin of fear. I paused again, savoring the chills I felt creep up my spine. My mother was calling me, but how? She was in another city, over 200 miles away, said, meeting my own gaze in the laptop screen. I want to tell you everything, but it's too much to type. You need to hear it. Hear me out. I wish I could describe the terror that gripped me, the icy fingers of dread that curled around my heart. I was paralyzed, unable to move, trapped in a nightmare that refused to end. Then, summoning a sliver of courage, I grabbed my phone flashlight and crept towards the sound, each step echoing my pounding heart. The kitchen was my destination, and there I found something that nearly shattered my composure. On the table lay a photograph, the only copy I had, the one I'd locked away in a drawer in my bedroom, the picture of me as a child. And on its back, scrawled in a handwriting that sent shivers down my spine, a warning. He knows your name. Don't answer. I let the silence hang heavy in the air, then added the finishing touch to my story. That night, I never answered again. As I reread my work, a sense of pride swelled within me. I had done it. I had created a chilling tale that would send shivers down readers' spines. I posted it online, eager for feedback, but something nagged at me. The story felt oddly personal, as if I had drawn from my own life experiences. But I dismissed the feeling. It was just my imagination, I told myself. After all, everyone has fears and nightmares, right? I closed my laptop, ready to relax after a productive night. But as I settled in, a new story popped into my feed. The title made my blood run cold. The night I heard my mother's voice, clicking on it, I found my own story staring back at me word for word. But that was impossible. I had written it myself. Confused and shaken, I scrolled up to read the comments. Wow, so scary. This happened to me too. What, did he just read my mind? This is my worst nightmare. With each comment, my confusion grew. How could this be happening? I reread the story, searching for clues, but found nothing out of the ordinary. The writing was mine. It's the words, the story, the feelings. They were all a part of me. Yet somehow it was everywhere at once, echoing in the minds of others. That's when it hit me. The story hadn't just appeared on my page by chance. It was meant to be seen by others. But who was behind it? Why were my deepest fears being shared by strangers? And what did it mean for me? I raced through my notifications, desperate for answers, but found none. Instead, I stumbled upon a new story. Never answer if someone calls your name. I clicked on it, bracing for impact. And then I saw it, the story I had written hours ago, the one I had posted. It was gone. In its place was a single sentence. It's not your story anymore. I felt a chill crawl up my spine, a premonition of what was to come. I had unwittingly unleashed a horror beyond my wildest nightmares. My story, my fears, my name, they had been taken from me. And now I must embark on a terrifying journey to reclaim them. But where to start? I was lost in a labyrinth of my own making, trapped in a story that was no longer mine. But then a glimmer of hope emerged. My mother. She had always been my anchor, my protector. Surely she could help me navigate this treacherous tale and bring it home. But as I reached for the phone, doubt crept in. Would she understand? Could she help me decipher this cryptic message? Or would my story remain lost in the digital abyss, forever out of reach? I stared at the phone, torn between hope and despair. If you enjoyed this scary story, be sure to subscribe for more spine-chilling tales. And for more supernatural scares, watch this playlist. But remember, if someone calls your name in the middle of the night, don't answer. Whatever waits on the other side of the darkness is not what you want to see. The cabin no one returns from. The first time Sofian heard about the cabin was in an anonymous email that simply read, *, go to the cabin before sunset. Gord, everything you see. *. He dismissed it as a prank, another creepy fan hoping to get a shout out on his YouTube channel. Then a second email arrived, then a third. All with the same exact message. No sender, no subject line. It's just those chilling words. Sofian ran a popular channel where he explored abandoned places across Morocco. Crumbling asylums, forgotten Casbahs, old French prisons. His fans loved the eerie content, and he enjoyed the thrill of documenting the unseen. But there was something different about this message. The simplicity of it. The command. It didn't feel like a request. It felt like a trap. And he was hooked. After a week of silence, another email came, this time with GPS coordinates. Deep in the high Atlas Mountains. There's no town nearby. Just endless forest and white-capped peaks. He looked it up on satellite view. There it was. A lonely black smudge in the middle of a clearing. It almost didn't look real. Sofian packed his gear, told no one, and set out at dawn. The road ended hours before the destination. He had to hike through ice-laced woods over a frozen stream, past animal tracks he couldn't recognize. A storm was rolling in. The wind whispered like voices trying to speak but failing. By the time he saw the cabin, the sun was already dipping behind the mountains. It looked like something out of a nightmare. Tiny. Black. Not aged by time, but eaten by it. The wood was charred in places like it had been on fire long ago, but had refused to burn down. The door creaked open slowly on its own, as if welcoming him inside. He hesitated. For the first time in years, something in his gut screamed at him to leave. But he didn't. He stepped inside. The air was colder than outside. Not cold like weather. It's cold like death. The interior was bare: one chair, one mirror, a bed that looked soaked with something dark and stiff. There was no dust. Everything was clean. Too clean. He set up his camera and began to record. Then the door slammed shut behind him. He rushed back, pulled on it, twisted the handle. It wouldn't budge. His flashlight flickered. The battery indicator was full, but the light dimmed anyway. And then he heard it. A whisper. Not in his ear, but in his mind. *, why did you come here? He turned, heart pounding, expecting someone behind him. There was no one, but the mirror had changed. Before, it had only shown the cabin. Now it showed him standing there, but behind him, a tall, thin figure with no face, just a stretched mouth filled with teeth. He spun around. Nothing. The camera was still recording. He approached it, wanting to stop and leave, when he saw the footage on the small screen. The figure was there, behind him. Every time he turned, it disappeared. But it was always there in the recording, breathing, smiling. The footage glitched. For a moment, his own face blurred and turned black. Just a hole, then the whisper returned. *, you should not have come. The cabin began to shake. The bed frame moved by itself. The floor cracked like bones snapping. Blood began to drip from the ceiling, slowly, thick like oil. Sofian screamed. He grabbed his camera and kicked the door again. Still nothing. No escape. He ran to the mirror and smashed it. The shards didn't fall. They floated, and aligned themselves midair, forming a perfect circle like a portal. On the other side, he saw himself standing in his apartment, editing the video. He screamed for help. The reflection didn't respond. Then he noticed something even worse. In the reflection, he was smiling like he had finally won. Then it clicked. That wasn't him. That was the thing. The thing had already escaped, and he was still here. The walls of the cabin began to close in, not metaphorically. Literally. Boards shifted. The room shrank. He was being swallowed. He dropped the camera and screamed into it. *, if anyone finds this footage, don't come here. It's not abandoned. It's hungry. *. The screen went black. 3 weeks later, a hiker found the camera near the edge of the forest, half buried in snow. No one ever found Sofian. Not a trace. No body. No footprints. Just the camera. The footage was uploaded anonymously to his channel. Within hours, it went viral. Thousands of viewers watched Sophian scream, cry, vanish. But then something strange began to happen. The comments section started filling up with the same sentence. Asterisk, go to the cabin before sunset. Record everything you see. People thought it was part of the ARG, a brilliant viral marketing strategy. Dozens of fans tried to find the cabin. Some claimed they saw shadows in the mirror. Others said their cameras recorded whispering, but the ones who really went there, they never posted again. And Sophian's channel kept uploading new videos. Videos of places he'd never visited. Videos with someone who looked like him, sounded like him, but wasn't him. He always smiles at the end of each video. A wide, tooth-filled smile. It's like he's daring you to visit the cabin too. Asterisk. Asterisk, the end. Or maybe just the beginning. Asterisk, asterisk.
Of course. Hear us a gripping horror story told from the perspective of a narrator. Realistic, chilling, and written in a compelling storytelling style without dividing it into stages or scenes. Title: She Never Left the Room. They say every house has a story. Ours had a silence, one that crept into your bones the moment you stepped through the door. We moved in during the fall. My wife, Emily, was 6 months pregnant, and we were looking for peace. The house was old, yes. Creaky floors, stained wallpaper. But it was cheap, and we thought we could make it home. The first week was quiet, too quiet. No neighborhood kids, no mailman, not even birds. Just wind scratching at the windows at night. One evening, while unpacking boxers in the attic, I found an old photograph stuck behind a beam. It was black and white. A family of 3, 2 parents, ... and a little girl. But something about her face was off. Her eyes, they didn't look like a child's. They looked tired, ancient. I flipped the photo. One word was scribbled on the back. Asterisk, asterisk, Sophie. That night, Emily woke me up. She said she heard a voice on the baby monitor. I reminded her we didn't even set it up yet. She stared at me, pale, trembling. It said my name, she whispered. A little girl's voice, over and over. We both barely slept, but in the morning, we laughed it off. Stress, maybe. Pregnancy hormones, new house jitters. That's what we told ourselves, until it happened again, and again. And then we heard footsteps upstairs. Soft, bare feet running, always ending at the same door. The guest bedroom. The one room we hadn't opened since moving in. We tried to ignore it. We locked the door. We left lights on. But it never stopped. Then one night, the door creaked open on its own. Emily screamed. I rushed upstairs, only to find the room and in the middle of the floor, that same old photograph, torn in half. We called a priest. He wouldn't step inside, just looked at the house, crossed himself, and said, "She's still in there." We tried to move out, but Emily went into early labor. We had no choice but to stay a few more nights. That night, I woke up to the baby monitor, buzzing with static, and then I heard it. Sophie wants to meet the baby. I ran to Emily's side. She was gone. I found her in the guest room, asleep on the floor. She didn't remember how she got there, but on the wall, written in what looked like chalk, were the words, asterisk, asterisk. She never left the room. Emily gave birth 2 days later. We moved out immediately after, but sometimes, at night, the monitor turns itself on, and we hear a girl laughing softly. No one else is in the room, and yet, the crib rocks on its own.
Hello, dear colleagues. It's me. Today we are going to read a scary story titled The Last Visitor. The author is a Saudi Arabian writer. The story was originally published in Arabic and later translated into English by me. Let's dive in. On a rainy night, exactly at 3 a.m., Samer woke up. He lived alone on the 5th floor of an old building, and at this hour, no one would visit him. So when he heard a soft knocking at the door, he thought it was just a dream-induced illusion. He went back to sleep, pulling the blanket over his head. But the knocking came again, this time much louder, slower, as if something heavy was hitting the wood. He got out of bed, walked cautiously to the door, and peered through the peephole. No one was there. He opened the door a crack. All he saw was a dark corridor and the sound of rain falling outside. Maybe someone had knocked on the wrong door, or maybe the building's pipes were making the sound. He shrugged, returned to bed, and tried to go back to sleep. But after a few minutes, when he closed his eyes, he heard a whisper, very close to his ear. "You opened the door? Now you can't get rid of me." He shot up in bed, his heart pounding in his chest. Was he dreaming? He turned on all the lights in the room and checked everywhere, under the bed, behind the curtains, but there was no one there. His blood started to run cold. Who was there? Who dared to enter his house at this ungodly hour? Had he been followed? He didn't know. He spent some time calming himself down before returning to bed. But as he lay there trying to sleep, he heard a voice whispering behind him, a voice that sounded exactly like his own, but colder, more hollow. "That's pointless. Samir, you can't escape me." He froze. Was he imagining things? Why did that voice sound exactly like him? What did it mean? "You can't escape me." Sat on the bed, paralyzed with fear, unable to turn around to look. What if what he saw in the mirror a moment ago was standing behind him now? What if it had come out of the mirror and was watching him? Then a new voice cut through the silence. It belonged to Samir, but somehow it seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You shouldn't have let me in," it said. Suddenly, the room was filled with shadows that danced on the walls. Something was definitely there, breathing heavily, getting closer. He was too scared to move, too scared to scream. He finally turned around. He saw a figure standing in front of him. It was a duplicate of Samir, but different, stranger, with sharp features, glowing red eyes, and long, dirty fingernails. A chilling smile spread across its face, revealing teeth that were too sharp and too long. It was Samir, yet not Samir. It looked at him for a moment, and then a cruel sneer twisted its lips as it spoke in Samir's voice. "Do you recognize me?" Samir shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "Who are you? How did you get in here? What do you want?" The doppelganger took a step forward, and Samir recoiled instinctively. "Don't be afraid, Samir. We're going to be together forever," it said, reaching out a hand covered in long, sharp claws. "No, stay away from me," Samir screamed, scrambling backward. He tripped over his blanket and fell on the floor. As the creature approached, he curled up into a ball, protecting his head with his hands. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness. When the lights came back on, the doppelganger was gone. And Samir was sitting on the floor with his clothes torn and his hair disheveled. Had it all been a dream? He looked around to make sure the coast was clear, then fled to the bathroom and locked the door. He splashed water on his face, trying to calm down and think clearly. What had happened? Was he going crazy?
Oh.
He looked at his reflection in the mirror and gasped. His face was pale and his eyes wide with terror. Then he noticed something even more frightening. His reflection wasn't moving. As he watched in disbelief, his image in the mirror began to twist and distort until it took on a life of its own. It stepped out of the mirror, and in a blink, it was right behind him. Terror surged through him as he turned around to face his doppelganger. They stared at each other, and for a moment, all was silent except for the sound of the rain. Then the doppelganger spoke in a voice that sounded exactly like Samir's, only colder, more distant. "It's time to come back to where you belong, Samir." He felt his legs turn to jelly, and he collapsed on the bathroom floor. "Oh, don't take me back there," he cried, reaching out a hand to grab his reflection's leg. "Stay here with me, please." His reflection, however, remained motionless. It looked at him for a moment, without any expression on its face. Then it turned and walked toward the bedroom. Samir got up, ignoring the pain in his knees, and followed his reflection. As he entered the bedroom, he saw the closet door open, and his reflection was gone. He hesitantly approached the closet and peered inside. There was nothing but empty hangers. Was he losing his mind? He decided to leave the apartment and get some fresh air. He needed to get out of there. He ran to the door, pulled it open, and stepped out into the hallway. But when he tried to walk out into the corridor, he found that the door wouldn't budge. He pushed harder, but it was no use. The door was locked from the outside. Panic surged through him. Was his doppelganger guarding him even here? He started to bang on the door, screaming for help. "Help me, please. Someone please help me." But no one answered. No one could hear him. Suddenly the lights flickered and went out, plunging him into total darkness. Then he heard a voice right next to him. "There's no point in resisting, Samir. You can't hide from me forever. It's time to come back to me," he screamed, feeling his way along the wall until he found the doorknob. He turned it and ran into the corridor, blindly searching for an escape. He ran until his lungs burned and his legs ached. Still, he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. He didn't dare stop. He knew that if he did, his doppelganger would catch him and drag him back to that cursed apartment. As he stumbled along, he felt something wet trickle down his face. When he touched it, he realized it was blood. He had cut himself on the broken glass of the window he had climbed through in his haste to escape. He continued to run, ignoring the pain, until he reached the elevator. He stepped inside, pressing the button for the ground floor. But as the elevator began to descend, he heard a voice that sent shivers down his spine. "Going somewhere, Samir?" He turned and saw his doppelganger standing in the corner of the elevator, its face illuminated by the flickering numbers. "I won't let you escape," it said, taking a step closer. Samir backed away, his heart pounding in his chest. "Please stay away from me," he begged. But his doppelganger only smiled, a cruel, mocking smile that sent chills down his spine. "We're going home, Samir," it said, reaching out a hand to grab him. Samir screamed and slammed his back against the wall. As his doppelganger approached, he closed his eyes tight, bracing for the inevitable. But instead of the expected touch of cold flesh, he felt something hard and cold pierce his chest, opened his eyes to see a dagger protruding from his chest. His doppelganger stood over him, its face contorted with rage. "Now we'll always be together," it hissed, pulling the dagger out of his chest. "You can't escape me, Samir. Not in life, not in death." And with that, Samir's vision went black, and he collapsed to the floor, his lifeless eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. The last visitor had come for him, and now they would be together forever. The last visitor had come for him, and now they would be together forever.